Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello, readers, and welcome to episode 60 of Fully Booked. I'm your host, Natalie, and today's episode is going to be all about the 2026 book and adaptation releases that I am excited for. So we're going to be talking all upcoming book releases for the first half of the year, as well as some of the exciting adaptations that are finally making their way to the big screen and streaming platforms. I'm honestly so excited to talk about all this coming up. But I thought before we actually dive into the whole list that I have for today, we could do a little Bridgerton debrief. Now, I don't know how many of you listening or watching are keeping up with Bridgerton and the current season, but I am on season 4. I'm actually a little bit behind. I've only watched the first 2 episodes, even though they've been releasing 4 at a time. I just feel like a lot of other people binged the first half of the season, but I've kind of been taking my time with it. And honestly, so far, I'm really loving the direction and the vibes that this season took, especially with the fairy tale-esque Cinderella retelling that we are going for in this love story. Also, a little disclaimer, if you hear some tapping noises in the background, my husband and I are still dog sitting and he likes to get up and walk around a little bit. So that's what you might be hearing. Yeah, if you see a little head popping up right now, he was getting a little bit needy and looking at me, so I'm just gonna keep him on my lap for now, but we'll see if he stays here for the rest of the episode. But where was I? Yes, season 4. I'm really liking it so far. I think it's because I can also connect a little bit more to our FMC Sophie in this one compared to the previous FMCs in the previous seasons. And I have to say, Benedict is not really my favorite Bridgerton brother so far, but I'm liking the softer side that we're slowly getting to see of him in this season. And yeah, I just really can't wait to see what else season 4 brings. And then to quickly go over my current read, I actually just started with A Vengeance yesterday. I felt like I needed a little bit of a breather from all of the romance novels that I've been picking up this month, and a thriller just felt like the perfect way to do that. This is Riley Sager's release from last year, which is one of the ones that I just didn't get to. I've only gotten about 50 pages in, but so far it's feeling very different from all of his previous books in like the writing style and the setup. I feel like we're starting out a little bit slower this one, and to put it a little shortly, for those you haven't seen, it's basically this one that takes place in one night on a single train ride. So it's very Agatha Christie coded. It also takes place in, I think the year's supposed to be 1953. So yeah, it's a very sort of different book. I'm not sure if this one's gonna lean more towards the mystery side and less of the thriller. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this thriller of his is going to go. But with all that, let's actually start diving into all the 2026 releases that I'm excited for. So to start off, not actually a book release technically, but for those of you who haven't been keeping an eye out as much, so far from what I've been hearing, there will be no new Emily Henry book in 2026. From the research that I've done online and checking all of her socials and updates, yeah, it appears there will be no new book. I'm assuming maybe there will be a new book from her by 2027, but she is very busy with all of the adaptations that are finally, again, making their way to the big screen. So honestly, it makes a lot of sense that there won't be a new book. I just hope that the next book that she does release is all the better, since hopefully she'll have some extra time to write it. And then the first book that I'm actually going to talk about, you guys, I'm actually so excited for, and that is And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison, which is coming out February 24th. So actually in a week from today when you guys are watching this episode. And this is the second book in the Heartstrings Interconnected standalone, which all takes place in Baltimore. And this second book is going to be a When Harry Met Sally retelling, and we are going to be following Jackson and Delilah, the former, which we actually did see his character in First Time Caller. He's Aiden's friend who also works at the same local radio show that they host. And basically, Jackson and Delilah are 2 competing meteorologists who are basically both competing to cover this giant snowstorm that it's making its way to Baltimore, and in the process of that, they end up striking up a friendship. And then if you guys know the movie, then I think you know kind of how it's going to go. I'm not sure how much of it is going to follow along the lines of When Harry Met Sally and how much is going to be original, because the impressions that I got from finishing First Time Caller were that she retained a lot of the essence and very tiny subtle details that viewers of these Nora Ephron movies are going to enjoy. But a lot of the story itself was still very modern, original, had that BK Borison voice and storytelling. And so I'm curious if this one is going to go the same way or not. Actually, if you guys don't know When Harry Met Sally, basically one of the main premises of the movie is Harry's character basically believes that guys and girls can't be friends, and Sally doesn't agree with him, and then that's something that keeps getting brought up throughout the movie. So I'm not sure if this is going to be a theme throughout this book as well, since again, a retelling, or what exactly she's going to do. But no matter what direction this book goes, I'm just excited to get my hands on it and start it probably the day it releases. And then we have multiple books all releasing on March 3rd, starting with Just Friends by Haley Pham. A lot of you have probably seen this one circulating online on Book Talk, especially with some of the harsh reviews that have been coming out about it. But this is a friends to lovers second chance romance. It's also Haley Pham's debut novel, and in this one we follow our two main characters, Blair and Declan, who run into each other after Blair moves back to her hometown to take care of her sick great aunt, and ends up running into Declan at the local coffee shop, which I can't remember if he just works there or if he owns it. And like I said, not sure how I'm going to feel, because I've been hearing very mixed reviews about this one, where a lot of people find the writing style kind of awkward because it's very flowery and very descriptive, which I don't usually mind descriptive writing, but I know bestie Jamie has already read this book, and she did kind of describe it as kind of sounding like The Ministry of Time, which if you guys don't know, that is one of Haley Pham's favorite 5-star books. And she kind of drew a lot of inspiration from that book in its writing style. And you guys know, I didn't really enjoy The Ministry of Time. I did think the writing style was very interesting and unique, but I just didn't like the other elements. So I'm very curious if that means I'm going to like this book or not. I have been hearing a couple comments too of this book basically reading as a self-insert, so I'm also not sure how I'm going to feel about that as well. But either way, despite the mixed reviews, I'm going to be picking this one up. And then we have a new Carapasto novel coming out called No Matter What. From the description that I read, this one is a second chance with a bit of a love triangle, which is kind of an interesting mix of tropes. So we followed a married couple on the brink of divorce, Roz and Vin, as they kind of navigate what they're supposed to do next in their marriage, as well as Roz kind of trying new things, rediscovering herself, and in that, she ends up striking up a friendship with her soon-to-be ex-husband's younger brother. I honestly just loved how realistic the friends to lovers was in Promise Me Sunshine. It just felt like such a breath of fresh air when I read it last year, and I knew I definitely need to try another book by her. I obviously still want to read Ready or Not, because that one has the unexpected pregnancy trope. And you guys know from my recent episode that I like a good second chance romance, especially a second chance marriage, which I'm assuming this one is going to be a second chance marriage kind of trope. I think I just really like this particular trope now that I'm also married and getting to see characters in that stage of life, and also just seeing that depiction, because you know, I love being married, but life is always happening and nothing is perfect, and so I just love seeing characters in more realistic depictions. And then the third book coming out on March 3rd is In Her Own League by Liz Tomford. This is a Windy City series spin-off where we're following Monty and Reese, who we have seen both of them in the Windy City series books. And Monty is one of the pro MLB coaches. He's also Miller's father or stepfather. I actually don't remember which one it is now. And then Reese, who has become the first female team owner. So we have a workplace romance going on. We also have an age gap because Monty is older than Reese in this one. I feel like this is a book where I can actually root for the age gap romance, because I'm going to be honest, I feel like the other books I've tried for age gap romance were like Penelope Douglas' Birthday Girl. I tried reading that, and that one was just too big of an age gap, and I feel like I couldn't get on board with the way our characters were interacting. But I feel like this one, they already showed tiny snippets of these two characters interacting even in the Windy City series, and I loved seeing even those tiny interactions. So I can't wait to see their full-blown romance and love story. Also, I feel like Monty is described in a way that he seemed young, even though I think he's supposed to be at least 40. But the way he's described, like, he's built, he's got a bunch of tats, he's just described in a very cool way, and so he doesn't feel that old, even if he is. And so yeah, I can't wait to pick this up. I might also be buddy reading this with some friends I know who also want to read this, so that will also make this very fun. And then right at the very end of March, we have The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez coming out. This is book number 2 in the Say You'll Remember Me interconnected standalone, where we are following Larissa and Chris, who met many years ago, and they immediately hit it off. The sparks were flying, but she somehow ends up dating his best friend instead, and then he's still had feelings for her this whole time that they've known each other, even though she's with someone else. And this one, I feel like could be a tricky situation to pull off, where I feel like we're kind of going to have some friends to lovers going on, but then also friend zone since she's been with his best friend this whole time. I think I'm just curious to see how she pulls it off, and I also want to know the initial reason why the two of them just never started dating, if they got along so well, and what actually happened in the past. I'm not sure if she's going to do dual timeline or flashbacks to show us that, but I really want to know what actually happened in the history between them. So I hope we get to see that. And I have to say, out of all of her books that I've read so far, because I'm not all the way through her backlist yet, I feel like Say You'll Remember Me is my least favorite of the Abby Jimenez books that I've read. So I'm really hoping this one can redeem the interconnected standalone for me, because I still love Abby Jimenez so much as an author overall. I just haven't loved the start of this interconnected standalone. This next book is actually one that I don't know much about, but I have been seeing it pop up a little bit on my radar, and other book content creators have been talking about it, and that is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark, which releases on April 7th, and this is actually an author duo of V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark, who, I'm going to be honest, I don't know the latter author, but I obviously do know V.E. Schwab, as I've read The Invisible Life of Annie LaRue by her. I don't really know a lot about this one, so I'm just gonna read this one out to you guys. It says, this one we follow 6 authors who are invited by a best-selling novelist to his private island, only to find him dead and his last book unfinished. So we have a mystery thriller murder situation going on here, which is very interesting because I actually don't remember what kind of books Kat Clark writes. I think she might write YA books. I really don't know. But obviously I know that V.E. Schwab writes more kind of historical, kind of fantasy novels. And this one very much is a mystery thriller. So I'm really curious to see how the two of them pull this genre off, because it seems like it's going to be something different for both of them. This one's not high up on my radar for new releases, but it did sound very interesting to me. And you guys know I always love a good mystery thriller as like a palate cleanser, and I'm always just looking for more new authors to add to my auto-read, auto-buy list for mystery thrillers, so I might end up picking this one up. And then for a book and author I do know more about, we have Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune coming out on May 5th. And this one looks like it's going to be a friends to lovers, where we follow these 2 lifelong friends, Frankie and George, where Frankie is getting married and is really hoping that George will show up, which he does, except that she ends up getting dumped by her fiance and the wedding is called off. Instead of just, moping around or going on her honeymoon alone, George suggests that she go on her honeymoon with him so they can basically fix their friendship. I don't know why the whole premise of this one is kind of giving me the ick, because I'm not sure how many of you watch Love is Blind, but there was a particular couple from, I want to say season 6 or 7, Jeremy and Sarah Ann. Basically, he did not choose her in the pods, but ended up with her anyway, and ended up breaking it off of his fiance. It's kind of giving me that vibe, and it's just not making me feel really good and inclined to read this book, even though I usually do pick up every new Carly Fortune release. The vibes that this book is giving off is very stormy, no pun intended. So I don't know what it is about this book. I'm not feeling super inclined to pick it up. So if you guys can change my mind, then please go ahead. This might be one that for once I'm skipping, even though again, the cover of this book is stunning. I love how she's kept the same style covers for all her adult summer romances that she's been releasing, because this one again, they hit the nail on the head. But unfortunately, I feel like that's still not enough to make me pick it up. And then for a super fun one, we have The Shippers by Catherine Center coming out on May 19th. This one has a childhood friends to lovers fake dating premise and takes place on a cruise ship. We follow our FMC Jojo, who is attending her sister's wedding. And in order to woo the guy who was her first crush, her first kiss, she enlists the help of one of her old friends, Cooper, to be her wingman and also to fake date. Low-key, the premise of this one is reminding me of Better Than the Movies so far, because we have a very similar premise where our FMC Liz also had a crush on a guy, and then she enlists the help of the MMC to fake date, be seen together, be her wingman in order to woo this other guy. And so I'm curious to see where the story's gonna go. I feel like Catherine Center has been picking such outlandish premises and plots in her newer romance releases. And this one definitely feels like it's going to be a bit outlandish, especially with the cruise ship setting. This is going to be a little bit of a random tidbit for you guys, but I am a bit of a cruiser myself. I've been on one last year and also back in 2024, and even if I don't get to go on one every single year, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be a lifelong cruiser, and it's definitely the type of vacation that I'd want to take my future family on. One day, I just find them really fun, so for me, this setting seems super fun, and I'm just really excited to see where she takes this book. And then we have multiple books coming out on May 26th, starting with Behind Five Willows by June Her. This one is a PMP Joseon retelling where we follow Haewon and Sojun, who are a book transcriber and writer who basically meet as chaperones of his best friend and her sister who are courting. And I'm just really excited to see the mix of cultures in this one. And I feel like out of all the books that she's published so far, this one is the most K-drama-esque from some of the reviews that are already out. If you guys don't know, she does write all Korean historicals, which this one does fall under as well, but the rest of her books are more plot and politically driven, not very much romance. So this is the first Korean historical kind of romance that she's writing, and I actually got a chance to meet her last year, and from what she said, I feel like this is a story that she's been waiting to tell for a while, which just makes it all the more special, and I was fortunate enough to receive an e-arc, so I'm hoping that I will finish that one soon and get to update you guys on what I think about this book. Our next book coming out in May on the same date is Dolly All the Time by Annabelle Monaghan, where we are following a single mother, Dolly, who happens to run into Stuart Whitfield, who comes from this very high-profile family, and following his public humiliating breakup, they decide to fake date after this chance encounter. I feel like that's all I really know about this book. There wasn't too much said in the description. I'm most curious to see how she pulls off this trope, because I've heard her say that fake dating is one of her favorite romance tropes to read, but I think this is the first fake dating romance that she's written. So I'm curious to see how she pulls it off, executes it, and honestly, I don't think it would matter what any of her new books are about. I'm just going to be picking them up either way. And then for the final book coming out in May, we have Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick. Sorry, I actually don't know how to say her last name. And in this one, obviously, we follow our titular FMC Phoebe, who is basically a 30-year-old virgin since she's kind of had this lifelong struggle with intimacy and has anxiety around it. And so we get to watch her set out into the dating world to find love, but also, I guess, to supposedly lose it. I don't know if I can say more without getting censored. And so, yeah, I feel like this feels like a very fresh story. It almost kind of feels like the female version of the 40-year-old virgin, which it's not one of my favorite movies, but it's one that I've watched a couple times and I enjoy it, probably just because I enjoy Steve Carell. I'm curious about this one because I feel like this struggle with intimacy anxiety is one that I'm not familiar with, and I feel like is not really touched upon in any romance books or even, in books in general. I'm curious to see how the discussion around this particular topic is going to be. I'm going to confess, I am not familiar with Brooke Averick. I know she's a famous podcaster, and I forget if she started on TikTok or something. But yeah, she's basically an internet star, and a lot of people follow her and her podcast and know about her. But I'm not one of those people, but it's just a book that's been catching my eye. It keeps popping up on my radar, and so because of that, I might pick it up. Now, this next book is actually one that, again, I don't know too much about, but I'm still already excited for it, and that is The Someday Garden by Ashley Poston, which comes out on June 16th. In this one, we follow our FMC Sophie, who is the temporary groundskeeper at Lilymore House. And while she's there, she ends up discovering this secret door to a whole other garden on the ground. And within this other garden, she finds this man who is living in there. I think that's pretty much all the description for this one said, but I'm really excited because, again, you guys know I love Ashley Poston and her magical realism romances, and this one in particular very much sounds like a Secret Garden retelling, which I'm pretty sure I read this one as a kid, but it's not one that I remember well. This is another one I don't know too much about, and surprisingly, I haven't been seeing a lot of people talking about this book, even though it's an Ashley Poston new release, which is interesting. So I'm all the more excited to read this one. And then for the final book, which has me very intrigued, we have The Unknown by Riley Sager, where we follow an actress, Mirren, who lands a role in an upcoming film and has to travel to this location for research. While she and the rest of the cast are on this island doing research, the events of the film that they're about to star in seem to be happening again. And they end up finding this left behind diary from obviously someone who lived there in the past that holds record of all the things that happened and why. And so she kind of uses that to kind of go back and figure out what actually happened and how to stop the past from repeating itself. I just gotta hand it to Riley Sager to really be able to pull off so many different types of premises and setups, and this one is definitely his most unique one yet. To me, it's very much more horror leaning, which scares me a little because you guys know I'm not really into the horror genre yet. Actually, I'm a scaredy cat, so I don't know if I ever will fully be, but I do always love a good Riley Sager book, even if it might be more horror leaning. Actually, you guys know I really enjoyed The Only One Left, which that one probably very, very slightly lean horror, but this one's giving even more. So I honestly can't wait to see what he does in this new one, even if it does scare me a little. Moving on to book adaptations. So I wrote down a few that are already out at this point in time when you guys are listening or watching. The first one is His and Hers, which has been made into a Netflix TV show and is based on the book of the same name by Alice Feeney. And I didn't really know a lot about this one since I haven't read this book yet, so I'm just going to read the description to you guys. So this one says, when a woman is murdered in Blackdown, a quintessentially British village, newsreader Anna Andrews is reluctant to cover the case. Detective Jack Harper is suspicious of her involvement until he becomes a suspect in his own murder investigation. I think this is the first time I'm actually reading this description to you guys and finding this out. Someone isn't telling the truth and some secrets are worth killing to keep. Wow, this one sounds very interesting. And you guys will get to see me talk about this book when my wrap-up comes out, but I did read Beautiful Ugly kind of recently and very much enjoyed that, and it definitely made me want to continue exploring the rest of her backlist. I've read the premises of multiple of her backlist titles, and they all sound very intriguing, but this one's definitely made its way higher up on my radar since it's one that I can read and then watch this adaptation, see how it holds up and compares. So hopefully this is one that I'll be able to get to sooner rather than later. And then for one that should be in the theaters by now, at least if you're in Canada, is Wuthering Heights starring Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Sorry, I actually don't know how to say his last name. Obviously based on the same classic by, oh gosh, I always forget which Bronte sister it is. Is it Charlotte Bronte? Hang on. Sorry, my bad. This one's by Emily Bronte. For some reason, the poster of this one is just very stunning and drawing me in, but I really can't comment much more since, again, this is another classic that I have yet to read. And if you guys have noticed my history and current kind of status, I guess, with classics, I'm not very good at getting to the classics. I always end up pushing them off and not getting to them. And so realistically, I cannot say right now when I would pick this up, but hopefully at least Wuthering Heights will be out on the streaming platforms at some point, and at least I can try to get to it by then. But for an upcoming movie I do hope to see in theaters, we have Project Hail Mary coming out on March 20th. And obviously, we've probably seen the posters and everything for this one by now. It is starring Ryan Gosling, except I kind of forget the rest of the cast right now and I forgot to write it down. Again, another one that looks really good. I do have my physical copy of Project Hail Mary. I have my audiobook, so I am ready to pick this one up at any time so I can get to see this one in theaters. This is one that I have not heard a single bad review of. Everybody loves this book, and just, I think the way it captures humanity and all the different human experiences in addition to being set in space. This is one that I truly cannot wait to get to. And just a warning for those of you who haven't yet watched the trailer and also haven't read the book, don't watch the trailer, because apparently, according to a bunch of people, there is a major spoiler in this one. It basically gives away the whole main plot or premise of this book, and it is just gonna ruin the reading experience, which is actually funny because I actually did watch the trailer for Project Hail Mary, but you guys know I have the worst goldfish memory, and so even though I watched the trailer, I feel like I watched it maybe back in November or early December. I actually don't really remember what they showed in the trailer that was a spoiler, so thank God for my brain sometimes, because would have really ruined my reading experience otherwise. But yeah, for those of you who are better than me and have not read the book, don't watch the trailer for this one. And this next one, which is coming out on April 15th as an Apple TV series, we have Margot's Got Money Troubles, based on the same book by Rupi Thorpe. And it's going to be starring Elle Fanning, Michelle Pfeiffer, Nicole Kidman, and Nick Offerman, just to name a couple in the cast. Very star-studded cast so far, and I haven't read this book, so all I really know is it's about this girl who's, I think, in her early 20s, and she's in need of money as a single mom, and so she decides to start an account to make money. And then the story just goes from there. This is one that I can't really comment on too much since I haven't read the book. I don't really know how it's going to play out, what the vibe is going to be. I feel like Apple TV, though, for some reason feels like the right streaming platform to pick up and adapt this book. My impression of it is that it's going to be a very kind of offbeat story. Yeah, it just feels like a story that Apple TV should adapt. So hopefully they pull it off well. I don't know when I'll get to this one since I haven't read the book yet, but it is one that's on my TBR, so we'll see. And then this next one comes out as a movie on May 1st in the theaters, and it is The Devil Wears Prada 2. Now, I think a lot of people probably don't know, I actually didn't know until I looked it up one day as well, that The Devil Wears Prada is actually based on a book. I think the book came out in the early 2000s. But obviously the movie has just become so iconic, and it's one that I've watched, honestly, a couple times, probably a bit of a guilty pleasure at this point. So when I saw that they were making The Devil Wears Prada 2 this year, I was so excited. It actually is one that I do want to go see in theaters. Honestly, gotta say, Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway are both looking so good as well. When I watched the trailer, I feel like this movie made the two of them very iconic. Obviously, they've starred in so many other great movies since this one, but yeah, there's something about this one that just became a little bit of a phenomenon almost, and so I feel like a lot of other people are going to be excited to see this sequel on the big screen, myself included. The last adaptation that I'm going to talk about in today's episode, coming out on May 8th, we have Remarkably Bright Creatures, which is based on the same book by Shelby Van Pelt, and it is going to be a Netflix film. Directed by Olivia Newman, who apparently also directed Where the Crawdads Sing. From what I read from articles online, there is going to be CGI in this film since we do have this element of a talking octopus. So yeah, this is one that I'm kind of getting excited for, especially because I actually DNF'd this book back in 2024, I want to say now, fully intending to never come back to it. I think with the movie coming out, and I also saw a couple people pick it up last year and really enjoyed it. It actually made me put it back on my radar and treat it more as a soft DNF, and one that I'm hopefully going to pick up within this year. I feel like the first time around when I tried to read this, I just was still more into plot-driven books overall. I was not really in my general or literary fiction era, and so this is a book that was just not very enjoyable at the time. I also didn't really enjoy this book as an audio-only read. And so I did get a copy from Libby on my Kindle. So I'm hoping that I can try picking this one up again and see if I like it more because yeah, over the last year and a bit, I've been enjoying a lot more literary / general fiction. And so I feel like this is one that has the potential to be a very highly rated read. And I just can't wait to see what I think about it and what I also think about the movie. But with that concludes today's episode and all the 2026 releases I am excited for. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and hearing about all of the upcoming releases. Let me know down in the comments or DM me on any of my other platforms what book or adaptation you are excited for in 2026, even if it's one that I did not talk about in today's episode. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys. As always, rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening. Subscribe if you're not already on YouTube. All content, videos, and episodes get uploaded on here. Actually, disclaimer, I know some of you are audio-only listeners, and I am very grateful. Obviously, that is a way to listen to and consume the podcast. But again, everything gets uploaded on YouTube because we are pretty much a video exclusive podcast at this point. So yeah, if you're subscribed, you'll get all notifications, and obviously it is a free way to support Fully Booked. Other than that, early access Fridays are still happening on Buy Me a Coffee. If you want to go over there and support the podcast in that way, that is always appreciated. And with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.